The cutlass struck the yam, and the whole barn filled with light. Amoka froze. The piece she had sliced did not fall. It clung to the blade as if the earth itself refused to let it go. A golden glow burst through the thatch roof and painted her face for everyone outside to see. In that instant she knew, this was no ordinary harvest, and this night would not hide what lived inside her heart. Once upon a time, in the village of Umuagu, where the red earth held the footprints of ancestors and the evening wind carried the smell of roasting yam, people would later say that the night the golden yam was caught was the night jealousy learned to speak. Before the light, before the shame, there was a household that looked like any other. Chinedu, the great farmer, stood tall among men. His barns were never empty, his titles were many, and when he walked through the market square, young boys stopped their games to greet him. He was a man whose hands fed not only his compound but widows and strangers. The elders often said, "A man who has yam has life." In his obi lived his two wives. Chioma, the first, moved like calm water. Her laughter was never loud, but it stayed long in the ears. She rose before the cock crow, swept the compound, and greeted the morning with songs that even the old women paused to hear. Amoka, the second, was a beauty that turned heads in the stream. Her wrappers were always bright, her waist beat sang when she walked, and Chinedu's eyes followed her often. Yet inside her grew a small stone that refused to melt, the stone of comparison. If Chioma cooked, the elders would say, "Her soup tastes like the one our mothers made." If Amoka cooked, they would smile and say, "You have tried." If Chioma carried herself with quiet respect, they called her a true Nwani. If Amoka dressed well, they called her fortunate. Each word was a drop of hot oil in her heart. One evening, as the sun fell like a tired calabash behind the palm trees, the village gong sounded. Gong. 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 The New Yam festival is near, the town crier's voice roared through every compound. Children screamed with joy. Women began to count their tubers. Men walked quickly to their barns, calculating pride. Chinedu did not sleep that night. Before dawn he entered his largest barn with his two wives behind him. The air inside was thick with the smell of earth and harvest. Row upon row of yams stood like soldiers. Then his cutlass struck one mound and stopped. Not because it met a stone. Because the mound shone. At first it was a small glow, like fireflies trapped under the soil. Then the light grew, pushing through the sand until a yam the color of the sun revealed itself. Chioma fell to her knees. Amoka covered her mouth. Chinedu staggered back and called for the elders. By midday the whole of Umuagu stood before the barn. The oldest priest, Izenia, whose eyes had seen more seasons than anyone alive, lifted his staff and spoke slowly, "A yam that carries light carries truth. This is not food. This is a test." A silence fell that even the goats respected. "It will stay in the obi," the priest continued, "and it will be washed. The heart that is clean will make it shine brighter. The heart that is not will turn its light to darkness." Amoka felt her stomach tighten. Washed. By whom? Chinedu spoke with pride, "My wives will keep it. Chioma first. Amoka after." The villagers nodded. It was fitting. That evening the compound was fuller than a marketplace. Women whispered. Men argued in low tones. Children stretched their necks to see the glow from inside the obi. Chioma entered first. She washed her hands, tied a simple wrapper, and lit a small oil lamp. The golden yam rested on a low wooden stool, its light soft but alive, like it was breathing. She did not go near it at once. Instead she swept the floor again, though it was already clean. She arranged the stools for the elders who would come in the morning. She sat down and began to sing. Not loudly. Not for anyone to hear. Songs for Hachi, songs for peace in her husband's house. Songs that mentioned Amoka's name with kindness. Outside, Amoka stood in the darkness, her arms folded tight. Why was she singing her name? Was it to show the village she was the good one? The night stretched. Inside the obi, Chioma spoke softly, "If this light is for our good, let it bless this house. Let jealousy never enter here." The flame of the oil lamp flickered, and the golden yam glowed brighter, filling the room with a warmth that felt like morning. At dawn the elders entered. The light met them at the door. Izenia smiled, the lines on his face folding like old cloth. A clean heart adds oil to the lamp of truth. Outside, women ululated. Amoka's ears burned. All day the praises followed Chioma like flies follow palm wine. "Did you see the light? They said it grew. Chioma is truly a good woman." Amoka pounded fufu with more force than needed. The pestle struck the mortar like a drum of war. That night it was her turn. She entered the obi with her head high, but when she saw the yam her confidence shook. It was beautiful. More beautiful than anything she had ever seen. Its skin looked like it was made of gold dust, and its light did not just shine, it watched. She sat down. Silence. The kind of silence that makes a person hear their own thoughts. She remembered the market day when an old woman had given Chioma meat and told her, "Share with your co-wife." She remembered the time Chinedu had said, "Chioma understands the ways of this house." She remembered the morning the elders blessed Chioma for her patience. Her chest tightened. "Am I not beautiful?" she whispered to the yam. The yam did not answer. "Does my husband not love me?" The light remained steady. "If I carry this glow inside me," she said slowly, "they will see me. They will praise me." Her eyes moved to the cutlass resting against the wall. The air grew heavy. Her heart began to beat in her ears. Outside, a dog barked and stopped suddenly. Inside, the light of the yam seemed to pulse. She stood. Her hand trembled as she picked up the cutlass. "I will take only a small piece," she said, as if the ancestors were bargaining with her. The blade touched the skin of the yam. For a moment nothing happened. Then the light exploded. Not warm like before. Hot. Blinding. It rushed into her eyes, her mouth, her thoughts. The cutlass stuck fast. A thick dark liquid poured out, not onto the floor, but onto her hands, her arms, her wrapper. She screamed. The light went out. Darkness swallowed the obi. Outside, footsteps ran toward her. And in that darkness, with her hands dripping and her breath broken, Amoka understood that the yam had not been cut. It was a heart that had been opened. If this story has already begun to pull you into the night of Umuagu, if you can see the glow of the yam and feel the heat in Amoka's chest, then this is the time to support the fire that keeps these stories alive. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, have you ever seen jealousy change a person before? Your support is the drumbeat that makes these tales travel from one village to another. Amoka fell to her knees, rubbing her hands together, but the stain only spread, darker and darker, like shame that had found a body. From outside came Chinedu's voice, "Open the door." She tried to speak, but her throat closed. The door swung wide. The elders entered with their lamps. The golden yam sat on the stool. Dull. Lifeless. And in the center of the obi, under the eyes of Umuagu, Amoka knelt with hands that no longer looked like the hands of a bride, but the hands of someone who had wrestled with her own spirit and lost. The priest lowered himself slowly, his gaze moving from the yam to Amoka. No one spoke. Even the night insects held their breath. And far away, Chioma stood at the edge of the crowd, her face filled not with triumph, but with something deeper. Something that would soon make the whole village remember this night not only for its shame, but for its mercy. Chioma did not rush forward when the mama began. She stood where the lamplight touched the edge of her feet and watched the woman who had shared her husband's name, her courtyard, her cooking fire. Amoka's shoulders shook like a child caught in the rain. The black stain had climbed past her wrist and settled into the lines of her palms as if it had always lived there. The villagers pressed closer to the doorway. Some whispered. Some clicked their tongues. Some hid their smiles behind their wrappers. The yam has spoken. Jealousy has eaten her. Did she think the spirits were blind? Chinedu's face was a mask carved from wood. His pride, the pride that had filled barns and drawn titles, lay on the floor beside the door Golden Yam. He looked at Amoka, then at Chioma, and then at the priest. Izenia raised his staff, and the compound fell into silence so complete that the crackle of the oil lamp sounded like thunder. A test does not shout, the old man said. It waits. Tonight the heart has answered. Amoka tried to crawl forward, but her wrapper tangled around her knees. Forgive me, she choked, her voice breaking like dry sticks. I only wanted to be seen. Her words floated into the air and hung there, heavy and raw. Chioma moved then. Not with haste. Not with the quickness of victory. She stepped into the obi, her shadow stretching across the floor until it touched Amoka's bowed head. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for the first wife to speak, to claim the moment the way people expected stories to end, with the good lifted and the guilty pushed deeper into the dust. Instead, Chioma knelt. The sound that escaped the crowd was small and shocked. She reached for Amoka's hands. The stain marked her own fingers immediately, dark against her skin. Stand up, she said softly. Amoka shook her head violently. Do not touch me. I have brought shame into this house. Let the earth swallow me. Chioma's voice did not rise, yet it carried to the back of the compound. If the earth swallowed everyone who made a mistake, who would remain to plant the yams? A few elders lowered their eyes. Chinedu's breath left his chest in a long, slow release. Chioma lifted Amoka's hands higher so the lamplight fell on them. These are not the hands of a thief, she said. They are the hands of a woman who was afraid she had no place. The priest watched her carefully, the corners of his mouth moving in a way that meant approval. Outside, the night wind began to move again, rustling the palm fronds like distant applause. Amoka looked up, her face wet and shining. Why, she whispered. Why are you doing this for me? Chioma did not answer at once. She turned to the stool where the yam lay, its skin now the color of old ash. When we both entered this house, she said, we came as strangers. The day you arrived, you placed water for me before I asked. Do you remember? Amoka blinked, confused. You were wearing the yellow wrapper, Chioma continued. You said, we will live well together. That day I thanked my chief for bringing me a sister. The words struck deeper than any accusation. Amoka's cry rose from a place that had been locked for years. She fell forward and held Chioma's waist, sobbing into her lap, the stain spreading across both of them. The villagers shifted. Something had changed. The shame that had been a sharp spear began to soften into something else, something that made throats tight and eyes sting. Izenia tapped his staff once on the ground. The yam has finished its work, he said. It has shown us two hearts tonight. One that allowed envy to grow. One that refused to let hatred answer it. He turned to Chinedu. Great farmer, your barn is not empty. It has produced a lesson that will feed this village longer than any harvest. Chinedu stepped forward slowly. He looked at his wives, both kneeling, both marked, both breathing like people who had run a long distance. "This house will not break," he said. His voice was not loud, but it carried the weight of his titles. "Not tonight. Not for the sake of pride." He extended his hands. Chioma took one. After a moment that felt like the pause between lightning and thunder, Amoka placed her stained hand in the other. The crowd exhaled as one. But the night was not yet finished. From the back of the compound, an old woman pushed her way forward. She was known for speaking truths that others swallowed. "Let the girl wash her hands," she said sharply. "Or will she carry this mark forever?" Amoka looked at the ground. "It will not wash," she murmured. "I have tried." The old woman snorted. "Every stain has a water." Izenia nodded toward the stream. "At first light," he said, "she will go. Not alone." Dawn came slowly, as if the sun itself wanted to witness what would happen. The whole village followed at a distance when the three of them walked to the stream, Chinedu in front, Chioma and Amoka behind him. The birds had not yet begun their morning songs. Mist hovered over the water like a veil. Amoka knelt at the edge. Her reflection looked back at her, the dark marks turning her hands into something she did not recognize. She dipped them into the stream. The water clouded. She rubbed. Nothing changed. A murmur moved through the watching villagers. Chioma stepped into the water beside her. Without speaking, she took a calabash and began to pour clean water over Amoka's hands, again and again, as if she were washing a child. "Leave it," Amoka said weakly. "It will not go." Chioma's voice was steady. "The stream does not get tired." The sun broke over the trees at that moment, and its light fell on the water. Where it touched Amoka's skin, the stain began to loosen. A small gasp escaped her lips. She rubbed again. This time the darkness lifted in thin lines, sliding away like oil. The crowd surged forward. "She is clean. Look." The marks did not vanish all at once. They faded slowly, like a bad memory leaving the mind. When her hands were finally clear, Amoka held them up to the light and began to laugh through her tears. Not the laughter of pride. The laughter of someone who had been given back her own life. She turned to Chioma and fell at her feet. "You have done what even the spirits did not do. You have given me back my name." Chioma pulled her up. "Keep it well," she said. From that day the compound of Chinedu changed. Where there had been silent competition, there was shared work. When Chioma cooked, Amoka pounded the yam. When Amoka went to the stream, Chioma followed with the calabash. Their laughter began to sound the same. The villagers noticed. Children were sent to their courtyard to learn how to live without rivalry. Young brides were brought to sit under their ube tree to hear the story of the Golden Yam from their own mouths. And every time it was told, Amoka did not hide her past. "I caught the yam," she would say. "Not because I was hungry, but because I was empty." The elders would nod. The priest would add, and what filled her again was not punishment, but mercy. The barn where the yam had been found was never used to store ordinary harvest again. It became a place where disputes were settled. People said the spirit of the Golden Yam still lived there, listening for hearts that needed to be weighed. Years later, when Chinedu grew old and his steps became slow, he would sit in the obi between his two wives and watch the compound fill with grandchildren. Sometimes he would shake his head and say, "The greatest thing I harvested was not a yam." And Chioma would smile. And Amoka would lower her eyes, her hands, clean, strong, and busy with peeling cocoyam, resting in her lap. But the story did not end there, because a tale that carries a lesson must travel. One market day a group of women from a distant village came to Umuagu. They had heard of the house where jealousy was washed away in the stream. They found Amoka under the shade of the ube tree and asked, is it true? Did your co-wife not mock you when you fell? Amaka looked toward the obi where Chioma's voice floated out, calling a child to come and eat. She could have, Amaka said. And if she had, I would have become the thing I feared. But she did not. She chose to lift me. That is why my shame became my teaching. The women returned to their village and carried the story with them. Soon it was told wherever two people began to measure themselves against each other. It was told when sisters quarreled. It was told when brothers fought over land. It was told when a new bride entered a compound with eyes full of suspicion. And always the teller would end with the same words. Jealousy is a fire that burns the pot that carries it. But kindness is the water that saves the soup. If this tale has touched your heart, if you have ever felt the sting of comparison or seen how a gentle hand can change a life, then this is your moment to keep this fire burning. Subscribe to the channel, like this story, and share your voice in the comments. Who in this story are you learning from today? Because in Umuagu they still say that stories are not only for the ears. They are for the living. And the living must choose, every day, whether to carry the cutlass of envy or the calabash of mercy.